China just built a type of concrete that bends instead of cracking, and it can stretch 500 times more than the concrete under your house before it breaks. Regular concrete snaps almost the moment you pull it. This new version flexes like rubber, seals its own cracks, and could remove the need for steel bars inside buildings and bridges completely. Here is exactly how they pulled it off. For over 2,000 years, concrete has held up nearly every structure humans have built. The Roman Pantheon still stands today without a single steel beam inside it. The Hoover Dam still holds back millions of tons of water. Every year, the world pours more than 4 billion tons of concrete, making it the second most used material on Earth after water. It beats steel, plastic, and glass combined. A cubic meter costs between $80 and $120 almost everywhere, and that price barely changes even when everything else gets more expensive. But concrete has one flaw that has never gone away. It handles squeezing force extremely well but fails fast under stretching or bending force. Pull it, and it cracks like a dry cracker. To fix that, builders started adding steel bars inside concrete decades ago. The steel handles the stretching, the concrete handles the squeezing, and together they built the modern world. Almost every bridge, tower, and parking garage uses this exact pairing. That fix created a second problem nobody could solve. Steel rusts when it touches water, salt, or air, and nearly every city on Earth has all three. Rain seeps into tiny cracks you cannot even see. When steel rusts, it can swell up to 10 times its original size in that one spot, and that swelling cracks the concrete from the inside out. In the United States alone, unfixed concrete damage from this problem adds up to more than $500 billion. Coastal cities like Jakarta, Mumbai, Lagos, and Miami get hit the hardest because salty ocean air speeds up rusting. Starting in 2018, scientists at Tongji University in Shanghai, the Harbin Institute of Technology, and the Ningbo Institute of Materials Technology began asking a different question. What if concrete did not need steel bars at all? What if the concrete itself could stretch a little, like a rubber band, instead of snapping like glass? Their answer was simple once you picture it. Imagine pulling on a sheet of glass. It holds, then shatters all at once at one weak point. Now imagine pulling on a fishing net. The force spreads out across hundreds of knots, so no single point ever breaks. Scientists mixed in fibers made from polyvinyl alcohol, each one thinner than a human hair, spread evenly through the concrete. It took 4 years of testing to get that bond exactly right. Too tight, and the fibers do nothing. Too loose, and the whole mix falls apart. Here is where the real number comes in. Regular concrete stretches about 0.01% before it snaps. This new material, called high-ductility concrete, stretches up to 5% before it fails. That is roughly 500 times more stretch, and that is where the 500% stronger claim comes from. But this needs to be said clearly. It is not 500% stronger at holding weight straight down. In pure crushing strength, it performs about the same as good regular concrete. The real advantage is how it bends and flexes without cracking apart, which means water and salt cannot reach any steel inside, because in most designs there is no steel left to reach at all. Scientists also tested it on shake tables built to copy real earthquakes. Regular concrete walls cracked badly and stayed bent afterward, unusable without major repair. This was not just a lab result either. In 2020, engineers repaved a 200-meter stretch of the busy highway connecting Shanghai and Chongqing using this material, with normal workers and normal paving equipment. That stretch carried 12,000 heavy trucks every single day. After 2 full years, inspectors found 0 visible cracks. Nearby regular asphalt roads started cracking within 8 to 14 months under the same traffic. Upgrading a factory to produce this material costs somewhere between 80,000 and 150,000 yuan. Once that road held up, the world started paying attention fast. By 2024, more than 340 patent filings referencing this material had been submitted across the United States, Europe, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and Canada. The places that stand to gain the most are the fastest-growing cities on Earth, across Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and coastal Latin America, where regular concrete fails fastest and money for repairs is thinnest. For the first time in 2,000 years, how long a building survives might stop depending mostly on how much money you have. Apple just got terrible news. Huawei launched a new phone that costs half the price of an iPhone and beats it on almost every spec that matters. Inside sits two brand new chips, the Kirin 9020A and the Kirin 9020B. Chips built entirely inside China after America tried to cut Huawei off from chip technology forever. This is the phone causing real panic inside Apple's offices right now. And the story behind it is bigger than one smartphone launch. On November 6, 2025, Huawei opened pre-orders for the Mate 70 Air. Sales officially began on November 11, the same day as Singles Day, China's biggest shopping event of the year. That date was not picked by accident. Huawei wanted every eye in China on this phone during the 1 week when the whole country is already spending money. The price is where this story gets interesting. The Mate 70 Air starts at 4,199 yuan. That converts to about $580. For that price, buyers get a titanium frame, a 7-inch display, and a battery bigger than almost anything Apple has ever made. The iPhone 16 Pro Max costs more than double that price for a smaller screen and a smaller battery. Now here is the part that should not even be possible. The Mate 70 Air measures just 6.6 millimeters thick. That makes it the thinnest phone in the entire history of Huawei's Mate lineup. Normally, a thinner phone means a smaller battery. Every phone company on Earth has struggled with that trade-off for years. Huawei ignored the rule completely. Inside that thin body sits a 6,500 mAh battery. The iPhone 16 Pro Max carries about 4,400 mAh. That is a massive gap, and Huawei's phone is still thinner. The frame is built from aerospace-grade titanium, the same material Apple charges extra for on its Pro phones. It is covered in Kunlun glass for scratch protection and rated IP68 and IP69, meaning it survives dust, water, and daily abuse. The whole device weighs 208 grams. Flip it over, and the screen is a 7-inch AMOLED display. It runs at 120 Hz, hits 4,000 nits of peak brightness, and shows a resolution of 2760 by 1320. Compare that to the competition. The iPhone 16 Pro Max has a 6.9-inch screen. The Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra sits at 6.8 inches. Huawei just built the biggest screen in the flagship conversation and wrapped it inside the thinnest body on the market. But the screen and the battery are not even the real headline. The real headline is what is powering this phone. Huawei did not use one new chip. It used two. The 16GB memory model runs on the Kirin 9020A. The 12GB model runs on the Kirin 9020B. Both chips are made by SMIC, a Chinese chip maker, using a 7-nanometer process called N+2. Both chips are fully domestic. No American parts. No foreign supplier that Washington could shut off with one phone call. This matters because of what happened back in 2019. That year, the United States cut Huawei off from American chip technology completely. Experts said Huawei's phone business was finished. Many predicted it would take China more than a decade to build advanced chips on its own again. Then, in 2023, Huawei released the Mate 60 Pro. Inside was a real 7-nanometer chip called the Kirin 9000s, built entirely by SMIC without a single piece of band equipment. It shocked chip experts around the world. The Mate 70 Air is the next step in that same story, proving it was not a one-time trick. Here is where things get even more uncomfortable for Apple. Huawei has been rebuilding its position inside China, its home market and one of the biggest smartphone markets in the world. Every point of market share Huawei gains inside China is a point Apple loses. And Chinese buyers are no longer choosing Huawei out of pity. So can Apple respond? That is the real question here. Apple has spent years selling smaller batteries, thicker bodies, and higher prices as the cost of premium quality. The Mate 70 Air just broke that argument in half. Huawei is proving a phone can be thinner, hold more battery, and cost less at the same time. There are real limits still holding Huawei back outside China. The Mate 70 Air runs HarmonyOS, Huawei's own operating system, which has no Google Play Store, no Gmail, and no YouTube built in. So this is not a global takeover yet. It is a China-first move, aimed straight at China first. But remember the number from the start, $580. That is what buyers in China are paying for a phone with a 6,500 mAh battery, a titanium frame, and two brand new domestic chips built without a single band part. Apple cannot fix this problem with a software update. Apple cannot fix this with a marketing campaign. The only way to compete with a phone like the Mate 70 Air is to build something that matches it, And right now, nothing in Apple's lineup does. The Kirin 9020A and Kirin 9020B are proof that the plan to slow Huawei down did not work the way anyone expected. Every restriction pushed the company to build everything itself: the chip, the software, and the ecosystem around it. That means the next time anyone tries to cut Huawei off, there may be nothing left to cut. The Mate 70 Air went on sale in China on November 11, 2025, and the countdown for Apple's next move has already started. For 20 years, one machine decided who got to build the future of computing, and China wasn't allowed to touch it. That machine is built by a Dutch company called ASML. It costs around $200 million per unit, and it uses light so precise it can carve circuits smaller than a virus. Without it, engineers were told, you simply cannot make an advanced chip. Full stop, no workaround. And starting in 2019, tightening hard by 2022, the United States made sure Huawei and its chipmaker SMIC would never get one. So Huawei did something nobody expected. They stopped trying to buy the machine and started asking whether they even needed it. Here's the setup you need to actually understand what happened. Since 1965, the entire chip industry ran on one idea: an observation made by Gordon Moore that the number of transistors on a chip roughly doubles every 2 years. That idea, later called Moore's Law, built the modern world. Phones more powerful than the room-sized supercomputers of the 1970s. But that streak has been quietly dying. TSMC, the company that makes chips for Apple and Nvidia, is reportedly fighting for something like a 6% improvement in its next generation. That used to be 50% or more. The easy gains are gone. And for Huawei specifically, the problem wasn't just that progress industry-wide was slowing. It was that the one tool everyone else still had access to, Huawei didn't. Then, on May 25, 2026, at the EE International Symposium on Circuits and Systems in Shanghai, a woman named He Tingbo, president of Huawei's Semiconductor Business Unit, walked on stage and presented something called the Tau scaling law. And this is the part that actually matters, so pay attention. Modern chips are not slow because the transistors themselves are slow.